Hi, welcome to Synthesis Academy, and today we're going to solve a problem from CENGAGE for JEE Mains Edition 3, and this is from complex number and it's question number 68. So here we are supposed to find the shape that the roots of the equation, the given equation can make. So we have a fourth degree equation here in terms of x, and it's not too easy to solve a fourth degree equation, but we know a neat little trick, right? You can just say y equals x squared and you can make this a quadratic equation, right? That has to be 2y plus 4 equals 0, which can easily be solved using the quadratic formula. Yes. Okay, and I hope you know the quadratic formula. Okay, so now it's your turn. Pause the video and try to find the equations using this formula. I mean the roots using this formula. Congratulations if you've done that. And for those who are just watching, you can continue on. So here the value of b is minus 2, a is 1, and c is 4. When you substitute that here, you get 2 plus or minus root of 4 minus 16 divided by 2, which gives you 2 plus or minus root of negative 12 divided by 2. You know, root of negative 12 can be written as root 12i, and 12 can be written as 2 root 3 because 12 is just 4 times 3. And you just write that here and you get this, which can be simplified to just 1 plus or minus root 3i. Yeah, 1 plus or minus root 3i can be easily represented by a polar form, because I know 1 by 2 plus or minus root 3 by 2i is kind of familiar, because 1 by 2 is cos 60 and root 3 by 2 is sine 60. So I can just say this is equal to cos pi by 3 plus I sine pi by 3. But here we do not have a 2, therefore 1 plus or minus, oh, here you have a plus or minus, by the way. 1 plus or minus root 3i alone can be represented as 2 cos pi by 3 plus or minus 2 sine, I sine pi by 3. Yeah, and this is just a value of y, and we need to find the value of x, right? So we can just say x squared is equal to 2 cos pi by 3 plus or minus I sine pi by 3. So the root of it will be plus or minus the whole root. So the root of 2 is just a root 2, and the root of this becomes cos pi by 3 plus I sine pi by 3 power 1 by 2, and by De Moivre's theorem you can just take the power inside the angle, so you will get plus or minus root 2, and you have a plus or minus cos pi by 6 plus or minus I sine pi by 6. So just by looking at this, you can tell me that there are 4 combinations here, right? Plus or minus 2 is there, so there are 2 combinations there, and inside there are 2 combinations. So we'll just try out all the different combinations. So we have plus or minus root 2 cos pi by 6 plus I sine pi by 6, right? So let's say this is positive first. So plus root 2 into cos pi by 6 plus I sine, so you have a plus or minus here as well. So plus, let's take plus in both cases. So you'll end up with a point here. So this will be root 2 cos pi by 6 plus root 2 I sine pi by 6, right? I just took the root 2 inside. What if root 2 is negative? I mean, this outer sign is negative. So then you will have, and the inner side is positive. So then you will have minus root 2 cos pi by 6 minus root 2 I sine pi by 6. Both are negative. So you'll end up with a point that's here, right? Minus root 2 cos pi by 6 minus root 2 I sine pi by 6. What if the inside is positive and the outside is negative? In that case, okay, we just discussed that. What if the inside is negative and the outside is also negative? In that case, x becomes negative and the imaginary part here, I mean the real part, becomes negative and the imaginary part becomes positive, because when you have minus root 2 cos pi by 6 minus I sine pi by 6, as you can see here, this multiplies to a negative number and this multiplies to a positive number. So you'll have x negative and y positive, which will end up here, which is minus root 2 cos pi by 6 plus root 2 I sine pi by 6. And the last point will be here, which is root 2 cos pi by 6 minus root 2 I sine pi by 6. Yep. And you have this shape, which is a quadrilateral, right? You know this is a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides. But how do we know this is a rectangle? See, first of all these points are just a part of a circle, right? Because we are just taking the plus or minus of it, so it's going to be the radius here. So since these are all radii, it means for this quadrilateral the diagonals are equal. In that case, it has to be either a rectangle or a square, right? So how do you know it's a rectangle or a square? So let's just try adding up these two sides, right? So we know that this line here, okay, so this line here, and if you add it up with this thing here, you get just the sum of the imaginary parts because that's the value of y. But if you do the same for the other line, right, which is the other side, if you add from here till here, that will be the sum of the real parts because you're adding the x values. So obviously root 2 cos pi by 6 when added 2 times will give you 2 root 2 cos pi by 6, and that is not equal to 2 root 2 I sine pi by 6 or just sine pi by 6, right? They are two different values. Obviously you know now that the opposite sides are only equal, so it can't be a square, it is just a rectangle. All right, so the shape formed by the roots of the given equation is a rectangle. All right, so that's the answer for this question. So if you have any doubts, you can mention it in the comment section, and if you have any suggestions too, you can mention that. I'm looking forward to it. So looking forward to your suggestions. Bye bye, see you, and see you during the next problem.